Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. We are excited to have you here for our virtual panel with Experian. And we are going to be talking about becoming modern day data heroes. I've typed a question in the chat box. If everyone can share where you're joining us from. I see it says chat's been disabled. Let me see if I can enable it. Okay, try it now. See if you can type something in the chat box about where you're from. Thank you. Perfect. So we definitely have a group that is coming to us from across the United States. I want to introduce myself. I'm Christina Fernandez. I'm Senior Director of Programs with TGR Foundation. I'm actually in Southern California. So excited to have everyone joining us today. We want you to know that we are recording this session and we will be archiving it. So if there's anything you miss, we will send out an email to all of our participants with information on our panelists, information on any links that are shared, in addition to bios of our panelists. So I would actually like to go over some of our digital community guidelines. So the chat box, we've already started using it. So if you have a comment or a thought on something that is being said by one of our panelists, feel free to share in the chat box. If there's a specific question that you have, please use the Q&A box. That's where we'll be looking for any questions. We also have the questions that you submitted during the registration process. And so we'll be answering some of those and then going on to a live Q&A. And we ask that you maintain a respectful and collaborative environment in this space. I'd now like to turn it over to Kaylee Fernando.
Thanks, Christina. Hi, everyone. My name is Kaylee Fernando. Just like Christina said, I lead internal communications and employee engagement within Experian for 2 of our business units. So basically what that means for me is I think about how people communicate within the business, but also think about how do we keep our employees actively engaged in their employee experience. For me, I live in the Orange County area in Costa Mesa, more specifically in California. I've been with Experian for about 5 years, and I actually started out as an intern here and then made my way to where I am today. I'm really excited about talking to all of you today and also introducing our panelists. We have been super excited to partner with the TGR Foundation over the past few years, and we're even more excited to do this event with all of you. Just like Christina said, if you do have any questions at any point, feel free to use that Q&A box. I have the list of all of the questions that were submitted during the registration that we'll take a peek at as well. But we'll also be focusing and starting off with the most asked questions with our panelists. All right, so with that said, we're going to go ahead and introduce our panelists. We can go to the next slide here. Great, and panelists, if you can turn your cameras on, that'd be awesome. So we have Mark Sofietti, we have Christian Lopez, and Monzi. Mark, would you like to kick us off with an intro, just your title, what you do, what does your title really mean in terms of what does your day-to-day look like, where you're located, and also why do you love this industry?
Sure. Thanks, Kaylee. Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Sofietti. I am in a suburb of Indianapolis, Indiana. So I'm in the Midwest. I am the Director of Organizational Effectiveness for Analytics team in Experian. And what does that mean? That means that I get the pleasure of working with our entire analytics team, and I help them and their teams be more effective at what they need to do. So I work on how our teams operate. I work on some special projects when we're maybe launching a new product or something like that. And I also just help out where's needed. I've been with Experian for 17 years now. I started out right out of college myself, out of undergrad, and then probably why I love what I do. I actually get a little bit emotional about this. I think data and credit is so critical, and credit education is really critical, because when you look at things that cause stress and people struggle with in their life, financial education and financial literacy and financial education helps that where financial stress is there. And so therefore, I actually view what I do from a credit standpoint, but really from a data standpoint, as making sure and ensuring people are able to meet their financial goals in life, whether it's, buying their first home, buying a car, being able to, pay for college even. All of those types of things I think are so critical in the US. And so that's really why I love working in analytics, working with data, and working with credit data.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Monty, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Kelly. Hi, everyone. I am Mansi Borkar. I work as a data modeler at Experian. So I started as an intern last year with Experian, and I am located at Costa Mesa, California. So I would say I basically deal with working more of consumer credit data here, and I basically work on data that are used to derive some insights that help our clients derive some informed decisions on consumer credit lending. And the reason I love working in this field is because I'm passionate about data. I really am curious to learn more about, I'm more involved in machine learning and predictive modeling and all of the data world. And this is something that keeps me motivated, since the industry is vast and there is a lot to learn in this. I really feel curious to know more and learn more in this field. And yeah, and that is the reason why I'm here. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Monty. And Christian.
Hi, good evening. I'm on the East Coast, I guess evening time for me. So my name is Christian Lopez. I'm the Vice President of Data Solutions at Experian. So what does data solutions mean? So what my team does is we take information about consumers and try to determine if we can measure the ability to pay in different manners that maybe are outside of the bigger types of credit scores that people might be familiar with. So something like a FICO score. We're also constantly looking for new ways to evaluate the ability to pay and therefore to make credit more available to consumers through our clients. And as well as supporting, providing research and development around just state of the economy, state of credit in the United States. I'm a newbie here at Experian, relatively speaking. I've only been here for 6 months. Before that, I spent 15 years working at Fannie Mae, and then also spent a year working at Amazon. So a little bit of a flavor of very different industries, but always with a credit and data analytics focus. And so as I was thinking about why I love this industry or this role, it really, throughout my career, I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of really intelligent data scientists, economists, financial savvy people. And I can honestly say I've never been the smartest person in the room. And that's always given me a chance to really, learn a lot and continue to learn. So, I feel like I learned a lot in college and in graduate school, but really most of what now I have built up over the years has come from working from some very incredibly intelligent and hardworking individuals that I've been fortunate to get to know.
That's really great. Thanks, Christian. So, folks, one of the things that we thought about when we were curating our panel was we wanted to make sure that we brought people who are in different stages of their career and had really diverse backgrounds too. And so we really want you to also take this opportunity to ask those questions. And if we don't answer the questions or get to them during the session, we will definitely take them afterwards and we will share them with the TGR team to share with all of you. Taking a look at the chat real quick, just like our panel being all over the US, we have folks who are also all over the US. We have Pennsylvania in the house, we have Florida. We also have actually some of our Experian colleagues here too, who are in Newport Beach. So welcome everybody. All righty. So our first question for today is, what are recommendations for college majors that provide a strong foundation for data analytics-based careers? And what college courses should students maybe take, in your opinions? Christian, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of different universities to support entry-level data science programs. And I'll say, overall, the most important piece in the data science world is having a level of a high degree of comfort with math and computer programming. Now, the caveat I put with that is it doesn't mean you need to be a computer science major or a math major. In a lot of industries or in a lot of companies, there is a willingness to sort of train and indoctrinate you into how their company operates. And I've had a lot of success in working with some individuals who, came from liberal arts degrees and, took some time to learn the basics of computer programming and took off from there. So I would say, first and foremost, there's no fundamental, you must be a computer science major or math major, etc. It does help, especially early on in your career, I think, as well as, some other fields in economics or finance, again, depending on the industry that you're in. But I would say definitely, if you see a class in, history of Shakespeare literature, take it. If it's a lot of fun and you want to go pursue it, go for it. If you love art history, go for it, because all this other stuff, it can come with, on the job training, graduate school, etc. So that's kind of the general advice I give a lot of students who I meet, who are looking to start their career.
I love that. And so, Mark, I would love to go to your story, actually, if you can just dive in a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I have an accounting degree, undergraduate degree, and I came to Experian right out of school. And like Christian said, I learned it on the job. The most statistics that I had in college was a business statistic course for a semester. And I learned it. I had great people around me who were willing to teach me and on the job, and I learned the industry. So and I learned from understanding the industry, I then started to learn the data that fed into the decisions that were being made or the data that was being used. And then I had wonderful people, colleagues, coworkers of mine that helped me to learn the statistics that I needed to know. And then, like Christian said, I took a few, personal development courses here and there that I thought would help me with my career And so that's my story. Is I don't have a math background. I also say that, like Christian said, I'm not the smartest person in the room most of the time, and I feel as though that being curious and being willing to learn is probably the biggest thing that you can do. So kind of those soft skills of just asking the questions, digging a little bit deeper, taking the time on your own, and putting that effort in will let you go really far in this industry.
Very cool. Thanks, Mark. Monty, I know yours was a little bit more straightforward when it came into, you knew that you want to go into data. Would you be able to just share about your experience and maybe some of the college courses that you took?
Sure. So, yeah, to be honest, initially, when I started my career as a fresher, I wasn't sure that I want to be in the data analytics field. And it was when I took up a bachelor's course that was in the major information technology. I got assigned a project while I was working for a firm. And this project was a data project. And while I was working on it, I developed interest. And then that's when I decided, okay, this is something that I am liking and I want to learn more in this field. And that's when I decided that I'll pursue my master's in data analytics field. And so I came to US, and then I did some research on several courses because I really knew what I want to do, like what I'm really interested in, to be specific with the coding languages. So I was more comfortable with coding languages like SQL and Python, and I accordingly planned and took up those courses during my master's. So if based on my personal experience, some courses that I would recommend for high schoolers are obviously in high school, we just have basics of computers and technologies available. And on completing those, maybe with a bachelor's degree that is more towards the data science field or data analytics, and have some courses aligned in that. Integrated with some good communication and verbal skills is something that I would recommend. But again, as Mark and Christine mentioned, that it's not mandated that you need to follow the specific set of courses in order to be here. You can completely take up whatever you like, and then take up some courses. Online courses are available, and accordingly, you can decide if you're interested in this field. Yeah.
And if I could add one thing to that, because Monty, I think, brought up something. It's very common in my experience of seeing, someone coming in from undergrad, from all walks of life, working for a few years, realizing that you like this industry or this career path, and then going into a more technical route. So, as Monty's own experience there, right? Like, there's a lot of great programs that are now geared towards professionals, as opposed to like a pure like academic type course. So like a graduate degree in applied math, applied economics, applied statistics. There's a lot of data science specific programs that have emerged here in the US as well. And that's a very common path that I've seen people take, which is, again, work a few years, kind of determine like, this is what I want to do, and then kind of refine, what they've learned on the job with a little bit more of an academic setting down the road, which a lot of times, depending on the company, will also be, covered in part or fully by as a company benefit.
So Christian, just to double click into that a little bit more. So I know that there's boot camps, like for even folks who maybe don't want to, or maybe choose not to go to college and go to a different program. How did you, or how would you recommend they find those credible programs?
Yeah, not to act as an advertiser, I guess. The fabulous thing right now is there's so many free online resources or online resources with a minimal financial investment I mean, I think it's amazing. You could take a Coursera course and basically audit a class, you know, from any university across the country, across the world, and get a little bit of a taste of it, right? It might not be the same feeling as if you were sitting in the classroom, and but a lot of those courses are pretty good, and I've seen people use that as a cheap way to get a sense of what type of work, you know, this field might be having. And then, you know, like YouTube's also great. There's some really cool videos on YouTube where, and I still use it, you know, almost all the time, where it's like you kind of start playing around with, let's say this is up for the programming space in particular, like you start playing around with some code, can't quite figure out like what's going on, and you know, go YouTube and check out videos. So there's a lot of those kind of informal activities available now that, you know, didn't exist when I started 15, 16 years ago.
For sure. All really great nuggets of wisdom. Going to move into a next question here. So the title of today's session is Becoming Modern Day Data Heroes. And at Experian, in your roles, can you give an example of how your work maybe impacts our customers day to day? I know Mark talked a little bit about it during his intro, so maybe you can kick us off here.
Sure. My wife actually tells a story, like when she's introducing Mark and like, what does Mark do? You know, people don't necessarily understand, oh, I'm in data analytics or anything like that. But most of the time people do understand kind of the story of like applying for credit. So going to get a credit card at, you know, maybe a retail organization, and, you know, they say, oh, would you like to apply for a credit card? And a lot of the times now the process is so seamless. It's you entering your social security number, and then almost immediately you get a response back with what your credit line is for that purchase. Those are the types of models that I have built over the 17 years that I have been with Experian. And so it is being able to allow people, back to like what I was saying, people have access to that credit when they need it. And so I like to focus on that when they need it part as well, just from a financial literacy standpoint. But it is allowing people to be able to, buy their first mortgage or their first house, or get a car that they need to get to work, or whatever it may be. And so therefore, building the models to help the institutions to make those right decisions for people at the right price point and everything like that really makes me connected to the consumers that are out there. And I think about it when I'm applying for credit and the process. Some processors are better than others, and most of the time data helps make that process a lot easier and more seamless.
That's so good. Just thinking about, because we have folks on here who are not just students, we have folks who are parents and guardians and people who have probably looked into what their housing situation is going to be. And so, like you said, the work that we do here impacts so many industries, not just the financial sector, like a lot of folks may think, which is awesome. Wanzi, Christian, would you like to add anything to what Mark shared?
So I would say a model that I was involved in with Experian was in AIS Health. So this was something different that I worked on. So this was more related to the claim history. So why a specific claim was rejected by an insurance company. So we had to accordingly check the history of the client data, and accordingly, based on that, build a model so that next time if there is any claim that is rejected because of the same reason, it can be handled, it can be taken care of. So this was something interesting that I worked on recently. Yeah.
Yeah, I can add just a personal anecdote. When I was in college, there was I went to the University of Maryland, and there was outside the basketball arena always like a table where Chevy Chase Bank was offering credit cards to students, and it was geared towards students. And finally, one day I applied and I got rejected because I had no credit. So it's like this vicious circle a little bit where I was applying to get credit, but I got rejected. And so, well, how do I get credit if you're rejecting me to give me credit, right? And so I won't take credit for this because Experian had already started on this path before I went. But one of the things back then is I was a renter. I was paying my monthly rent every single month as a student, and that wasn't something that got reported or evaluated as like a key piece of information that might say I couldn't afford to have more credit. And that's like a ongoing effort that Experian has put a lot of energy into of trying to collect and understand the power of rental information, which is a very logical step then for home ownership. So that's been hopefully it becomes like a way to really expand the first time home ownership pool and expand accessibility to people like my 18-year-old self, 19-year-old self who got shut out and had to work a little bit extra through other means to build out that credit history.
That's a great example. So just to connect the dots here a little bit, when we think about what is data, and I saw that question come through too, a lot of times just in the most simplistic forms, data is information. And so information can be a whole breadth of things, if you will. So that could be things like one's name, all of their identification information, but then can also be information like sentiments, like survey data. And there's just so much more that you can do with that. What I love about the stories that Mark, Christian, and Monzi shared is that from that pool of data, it's then changed and used to create something meaningful. Oftentimes, I think, especially with the younger generation right now, they're exposed to data through analytics in social media, like looking up their engagement there or how many likes did they get, all of that. And then that curates in their minds of okay, this is the type of content maybe that they want to start to create instead. I love that that's one example of how we use data, but then the other example in this business environment at Experian, just like Mark and Christian, Monzi were saying, is that with the data, there comes a credit score. And then with that credit score, you can actually make a very big life impact, like getting a house or being able to rent an apartment, whatever it might be. And another thing too that was alluded was there's that innovation aspect of using data. Would love to hear from this team, how does innovation and data collide together? Especially because I think in high school and college, we're thinking about what's next? What's the future going to look like? How have you seen innovation and data come together at Experian or in your experience?
I can start that. So when I started, there was a lot of theoretical models, econometric models that could be built, but the technology hadn't caught up, and the technology hadn't caught up from two vantage points. One, collecting all the information that was necessary to actually develop and test that model and see if it works. And then the ability to actually process, right? So it was a collection and then a kind of, brain power issue. And so to give kind of an example, in the home ownership space, I'm assuming most people on this call aren't homeowners or haven't gone through a process, but there's something called an appraisal. So before you buy a house, there's an independent individual who comes in and makes an assessment of if they think the house is worth what the buyer and seller had agreed to, or roughly worth. Traditionally in the mortgage space, the only piece of information that got collected from that report was that value, right? That was like the only thing that got collected, because that was the only thing we could use, we could take from it. But that report oftentimes had the appraiser writing handwritten notes saying, you know, like, this is a brand new house with a brand new roof, new kitchen, and it's located next to, a brand new shopping center with a lot of, traffic coming in or whatever. So there was a ton of rich data, which I think 20, 30 years ago, no one really considered how to be able to process it and what to do with it. And with all the innovations that have happened from, developing algorithms in natural language processing, so how to understand what a human wrote into something that a computer could actually read and digest, to then being able to process that. Because when you create like a giant, when you start taking in those written commentaries, that's a huge amount of data that's being processed and then has to be stored. So those were things where when I started my career, no one imagined you could ever use that information. And then suddenly it's, every mortgage company in the industry now is capable of processing that extra information, and it's become so much more valuable to really be understanding what type of risk both the consumer and the lender is taking on when this loan gets made.
I would add to that, Christian. I think you talked about, the extent of data available, and that really has exploded, literally exploded exponentially from when I started my career as well. Then you also talked about kind of the processing of the data to be able to come up with things. I think in both of those things, I'll take it another step further. Different industries are looking at data and using data within their decision-making process. So, industries that maybe didn't necessarily use data before are now using data. And so from an innovation standpoint, it is, we now have this data, we now have this process. What other decisions are being made that we can have this data and analytics to make better for us? So if you think about, I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and somebody said that each individual makes 35,000 decisions like in a short period of time. Like we make all these different decisions. And if you think of a business or a not-for-profit or, like any organization, they're also making these decisions where before they might not have used data or analytics to make them, they are now making those. So basically, really, the sky's almost the limit now in this industry of data scientists, because all of these organizations are looking for people that can understand and make clear use of the data that they now have on their customers, their people that they're trying to market to, or whatever.
Yeah, you make a really great point there, both Christian and Mark. Monzi, how would you see innovation and data going hand in hand in your day-to-day, or maybe with where the industry's headed?
Yeah, I mean, data science industry is booming, and like there are a lot of opportunities, a lot of new technologies coming in. And even in my experience, I did a couple of projects while pursuing my master's degree in the data analytics. So that time I came to know more about how machine learning and predictive analytics work. So that is something that is really interesting, and how like the data is used, based historical data is used, and using that, how the future or outcome is predicted is something that is quite innovative. That is what I feel. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is, Oh, go ahead, Mark.
Can I just add one thing? I go back to like when we were talking about courses to take or different things. I mentioned just being curious. I feel like because we have all of this, if you're curious, you can build something new. There's a lot of open white space right now. And you have the tools and the data to do that going forward.
And that's a great segue into a question that was just asked. So as working professionals in the finance industry, how do you suggest outsiders gain the financial literacy needed to function in real life? And then secondarily, what barriers do you believe limit this education?
Yeah, maybe I'll take a stab at this. First off, Experian has a lot of programs on financial literacy. So I'll start there. I actually serve as a credit educator. So I go to schools or different not-for-profits in my area and present on financial literacy because I think it's critical. But I do think that why it's so critical is a lot of people don't necessarily understand all of the nuances of credit or of the decisions that they make with credit and how that can impact them long term. So there's a lot of great information online as well. Back to YouTube, I know Christian mentioned that earlier. I do know that that's another really great resource out there for understanding credit scores, credit reporting. There's a lot of blogs out there as well that do, I know some national magazines have done articles on credit scores that can really help. And there was a second part to the question that I've now forgotten. What barriers? There we go. So what barriers are there? Unfortunately, I do think that there are barriers that are out there to access to credit. And as a company, as Experian, we're really trying to remove those barriers and to provide access to credit. So like Christian mentioned around rental data, utility data, a cell phone, everybody these days have a cell phone bill. So allowing that type of information to come into your credit report to grow your credit history is critical. So there are programs that allow you to do that yourself out there. But then as Christian mentioned, kind of about being a young person trying to get access for credit, there are other means there as well. So from certain credit loan types or from certain credit cards allow you to have a small amount that you can start building that credit history to build that credit report that then can get you access to more and more credit.
Yeah, I love.
We probably could have a whole session on that.
I really like what you mentioned about like maintaining that curious mindset and looking at what's out there. A couple of things that Experian does offer too is we do have a blog that's just dedicated to like financial education and inclusion. There's actually a YouTube series as well. We've done a really great series with the Grammy Award winner Lecrae, and that's also on YouTube. That's available. So if I would suggest how to maybe just get started would be take a look at what's out there. Maybe starting with the Experian blogs and Experian YouTube. But Christian, what are your thoughts on gaining some exposure to financial literacy?
Yeah, I was reading that question as it came in. I think that was a fantastic question. I would say in general, it's a little bit, whenever anyone sees some sort of offer for a financial service, I think people should always understand it's never free. Like somebody is paying or looking to monetize and get paid for that service. And I think that's where if and going back to being curious, if you go that next step of, okay, this company is now offering me, let's say something like buy now, pay later, like that's a very popular, like a company like a firm. On the surface, it looks like, oh, there's no fees, right? So you should think about that. Like, why is it no fees? How does this company survive if they're not charging me a fee to take a loan from them, right? And I think it's important to just have that sort of maybe cautious, and this might be because I started my career in the Great Recession, but taking a cautious approach and understanding of like what companies are trying to do, because it might be free today, it might not be free in 6 months, it might not be free in a year. And so before engaging in any sort of financial transaction, like if you don't understand how they make money, it's probably a good moment to just take a pause and then go figure out, like, how is it going to work? Because then that way you start to understand what would be expected of you as a consumer, down the road, as well as then being able to evaluate various different products to see, like, is this like a good path to go through? And that second question, the second part of that question about barriers, I think a lot of it is because this stuff is sort of black box. Like, it's hard to understand and digest this information, right? Like, who reads the like 40-page terms of agreement, right? Like, very few people go through that, but it's buried in there a lot of times if there's any hidden fees or if there's any escalators or minimum requirements if you're taking out a loan, like what you're supposed to do. So and I think that's unfortunately purposeful, right? Like there's a reason why it's set up that way. And so, taking a cautious approach and before any transaction, I think it's very important, and really trying the best that you can to understand the business model.
That's a great answer, especially thinking about the finance industry or just the professional world in general. I think just as an example of like how some services may be seen as free and where do they actually get the money from? Oftentimes it's like advertisers, and they're the ones who are paying X company to make sure that their message is getting out there. And then that's how they're generating their income or their revenue. Monzi, how about you? When you think about like financial literacy, what do you think is maybe like a barrier? How would you recommend for our younger audience? How can they get started?
So to be honest, when I joined Experian, I did not have much background on the finance industry. So I had to start with the basics and all the information. So I did a few trainings on financial industry, how things work, especially with the credit and the terms that are in this industry. So I did use the resources like YouTube and Google, and you get everything on the internet these days. So I definitely took reference of Experian websites and all the information that is put up on the training portal and the internet. And then like I utilized all of that in the model building and in the technical terms. So that was really helpful. And with the barrier, I still think I'm learning more in the finance industry right now. And as I'm learning with the experience, like if I apply for a credit card, I encounter certain things, or I learn or I come to know more about how things work in the credit field through the experience. So that's what I feel like. The barrier is something that information is not available, but through experience, you can just come to know how things are and how things work. Yeah.
It's almost like sometimes we're our own barriers because we don't want to take the next step to actually look for the information.
Yes, yeah, this has happened to me a lot of times.
You're not alone. I'm guilty of that as well. So Monzi, while we're on talking to you too, another question that came in is, what application of data analytics do you consider is currently the new frontier in data science?
So basically in data science, it opens different positions. So if you're looking more into data analytics field, then we use SQL is mostly used, and a scripting language that is Python and Scala that is used in the data analytics field. More of if you're looking for some data scientist role, then you really need to have some background on mathematics, statistics, and all the machine learning, data mining algorithms, the basics there. So the technologies that we use are again R programming, Python programming. So these are the two most important coding languages that are used with the data scientist role. Yeah.
Great. Hearing it from someone who's living it every day. Christian, Mark, would you like to add anything?
I think, and I've mentioned this before, I think what's happening in the natural language processing world is just fascinating. The ability to teach a computer to understand our dialogue, right? Like someone could take the transcript of this call, feed it into a computer, and then do an assessment of the quality of the conversation, the tone, the when did we use sarcasm. I think it's fascinating, the ability that is starting to come out to be able to do it. And there's still a lot to do, or there's still a lot to learn and grow and how to do that, and then how to use it to come back to clients, consumers, right? Where someday you'll be calling up a call center and you think you're talking to a person the whole time, and it's just a recording with a bunch of algorithms responding back to you. Like I think that's that's going to be here sooner than expected, and so I think that's it's incredibly challenging because it's a massive data challenge, not just mathematical propositions. So but yeah, really cool stuff that's emerging from there.
So Christian, you have from handwriting to computers, and now computers to natural voice.
Mm-hmm.
Your career is taking the whole gamut. How about you, Mark?
I think the only thing that I would add to this is, just as Christian was mentioning it, and is there's a lot of discussion around data analytics, and like we've said on this, kind of the sky's the limit. There's a lot of white space. I think there's now a lot of the discussions around ensuring that the models, the data, the analytics are fair, and that they're it's ethically used. So I actually think that that's part of the next kind of thing with all of these things. So we have the data, we have the processing, we can do all of these things. I think now it's that conversation around, are we ensuring that we are protecting people, that we are protecting certain classes of people? Are we doing that? So I actually think that that's kind of the next thing. This isn't necessarily a an application or a coding language or anything like that, but I think that that's the next kind of thing that this industry is going to really grapple with, as we've started to, but I think that that's the next thing we're really going to dive into.
Very cool. And someone says, thank you for making that point. And I also see in the chat that all of your responses have been very insightful thus far. So thank you. We have about 10 minutes left, and we do have a few more questions here. Next up, we have, do you need to have a strong base in English for this career path or this industry?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think so. I mean, obviously, in some countries, English is the primary language, and this is an industry that spans the globe. Experian is an example of that. We have people literally all over the world on, I guess, almost all continents. And so, yeah, not a prerequisite by any means.
Great.
I'd agree with that.
And then next up, What is one thing that you would tell your younger self if you had the chance? Christian kind of answered this one already around being curious.
Yeah, I mean, again, my younger self, I graduated right when the recession started. So I would have told myself, don't worry, like the world will calm down again. I think it's, just never lose that curiosity piece. Like again, like I said in the beginning, it's I've never really been the smartest person in the room, and so use each moment as an opportunity to learn and to ask questions, and especially that last piece of like, just don't be afraid to ask questions. Like it's I think when you're just starting out, you have this sense of you want to like appear knowledgeable and that you understand what's going on, and with hindsight now, I just realized how many times I just had no clue, and I should have spoken up, and I should have just said like, sorry, pause for a moment, can you explain that to me in layman terms, because I don't know what's going on here, and that would have definitely streamlined the learning process for me significantly in a lot of different instances.
I can definitely relate to that. Monzi, Mark, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I would also say that what I am doing today, I never dreamed that I would be doing that when I was in high school or even in college. Like I didn't even know it was a thing, like, and as we've talked about, innovation, technology, data is changing so rapidly that in the next 10 years, I don't know necessarily what I will be doing either, or what we will, like what the new things will be in 10 years from now. And so being okay with change, being okay with the rapid evolution of things is probably what I would kind of say to my younger self. And then kind of what Christian said, be willing to jump in, say yes, be willing to learn, be willing to ask questions to get there, because again, what we're doing today with data and what somebody is doing 10 years from now is probably going to be very different. The languages are the coding languages are going to be different, the technology is going to be different, what we're solving for is probably also going to be different. But if you have that skill set of being curious, willing to learn, all of that, it's going to help you wherever you are.
That's great. Monzi, any advice to your younger self?
So I would say be patient. Yeah. So initially when I started my career, I wasn't patient. I was like, why can I not code in this specific language or Java? That didn't work for me. And when I got this project assigned SQL, I was very much comfortable. And then I learned more and more programming languages. And that's how I came to know, okay, so this is something that I can work on. So I would just say, try to be patient, embrace things how they are, and everything will fall in place. Yeah.
Very much agree with that as well. We have two last questions here, so we're going to rapid fire this one. There is a question around career paths associated with the stock market and data. Are there career paths that do that at Experian? Yes, actually, and we have some folks who they just focus on the stock market and analyze it and have projections based off of it. Really quick, would the team like to share a little bit about that or any other insights?
I don't have a lot of knowledge about that specifically or that area, but again, obviously, yes, the stock market uses a lot of data, and broker, there's so many different areas that that use that. So I could definitely see where that would be, but I don't have a specific career path or anything like that.
No worries. For the person who asked that question, if on LinkedIn, actually, we have a director in decision analytics who does a lot of LinkedIn. I think he's a LinkedIn influencer, and he's even has the little icon next to his name, and he talks a lot about the stock market. So it's definitely a career path that is available. And then another question is, are there internships available? There are internships available at Experian. The internships will be starting to post up for our summer cohorts around January timeframe, I believe, but we will be sure to send Christina that link to share with all of you. And then in terms of where to find internships and job opportunities, that's another question that's asked here. LinkedIn, there's definitely jobs there. At Experian, we also partner with an organization called wayup.com, and they also look at a very diverse pool of candidates as well. But you also have the more traditional sites like Indeed, and you can always just go to the job site itself for a company that you're interested in. Like for us, it's Experian Jobs. And we also have a social media account that's at Experian Jobs on Instagram, Twitter, and you can find more information there as well as what it's like to be an employee here. So with that, I'm gonna pass. Yes.
Real quickly, I would also say, I know that kind of what other companies or other ways, normally at your university, there is a career center or anything like that. I know that's how I actually came to Experian, was through my college. They had openings and stuff like that. I know it was many moons ago that was very different, but that's always a good place to start as well with trying to find internships.
And I would also add recruitment at a lot of places does start in the fall. So if you're looking for an internship in 2023, it's September through October where a lot of places do start that recruiting and looking for people. So it might feel really early, but it's not.
Yeah. Really great tips, that's for sure. Alrighty, well, thank you all so much for joining us today. And Christina, I'm going to send it back over to you.
Thank you, Kaylee. I appreciate you moderating this great group. I'm going to give snaps, silent snaps on my end, to Mark, to Monsi, to Christian. I learned a lot. I really enjoy participating in these for the foundation, and we do cover different topics. And this one was something I wasn't as familiar with, and I took a lot of notes for myself, for my students, for my son and family members. The other thing I want to add, because Christian, you just kind of gave really great advice, and I think students don't realize that because it was maybe a little different, not just internships coming, searching for internships in the fall, but employment opportunities happen in the fall as well. And I think a lot of times when we were graduating college, we were like, okay, well, I graduate in June or I graduate in May. I'm going to start looking for employment opportunities in April or May, but they're actually needing to find those employment opportunities in the fall as well. So great advice. I appreciate that. I'm just going to share one last slide, and that's just our resources. And we will share this PowerPoint at the end. We'll circle back with the video. These links are live links. And so we will definitely have a link to the Experian website, which not only just provides credit resources, but career resources. You heard a lot of the information that they offer with their blogs. The foundation also has resources in the areas of college access and STEM modules. And this recording will live on our YouTube channel. But thank you everyone for joining us today. We appreciate you being here. And feel free to send us an email if you have any questions. Utilize LinkedIn. All of our panelists are on LinkedIn. So if you are on LinkedIn, you can also reach out to them there and ask them some questions and connect. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.